Hey Andy, hi Radical. Seeing if I can quickly fit in an answer to your questions. I think it kind of gets down to an epistemological base. The nature of truth is a lot of what's surrounded in your questions and comments. You look at it generally, or virtually always, someone is, as you say, going to feel that their viewpoint is correct. Their perception of regardless of what faith they're in, the fact that they're in that faith, generally, if it's not because they were born into it or whatever, is because they believe it's the best one, and oftentimes that coincides when you're inculcated in a faith. Oftentimes you will see that as the best faith, and I see your point there. But we all have the same laws of nature that act on us, and so even if it is relative to our particular situation, that you would need to determine how these laws would play out on us. There are set laws that do act on us, and if they were arbitrary under the view of the hypothetical, as many anti-theistic people would put it, of God existing, and I believe God exists, but God would be just, and so if there was any arbitrariness in the way things were set up, he would be unjust. And so there's a definite commonality that we all hold. We may have different, again, manifestations due to our different life situations, with regard to there are factors that aren't known to us, and that are to us individually, but not to the collective whole. And so, but ultimately there's a fixed reality, even if it is context based and relative. And this is regardless of our perceptions. And just a brief example, whether or not somebody knows that they're plummeting at terminal velocity towards some moment of impact with some other object, doesn't really change the effects of what happens when they impact with that object, whether they think that they're not moving at all or they are well aware of it. Either way, the reality is the same. And so with these constants in reality, a reality that we're inescapably tied to, these things have limited manners in which they can be successfully dealt with. They're bounds in reality. And so there can be a variety of paths in certain situations, but there are right ones and there are wrong ones, and there are degrees of goodness and of optimal goodness, and all of this can be determined. I mean, if you believe in God and God is just, then there would have to be set bounds between good and evil, even if things were relative to context. And so this gives us right and wrong, good and evil. And since there's clearly a cause and effect, there's things to act and things to be acted upon. There's a portion in the Book of Mormon that talks about this a bit more. It's in 2 Nephi chapter 2, if you have time to read that. And all this bearing in mind the fact that God, by definition again, must be perfectly just, there have to be certain unalterable conditions which would need to be met for salvation, for eternal life, for whatever means of reaching oneness with God, or whatever state of perfection. So the fact that these exist, and there's paths and ranges of things, there has to be thresholds and degrees. There has to be fixed points where something is good and something isn't, or where something is good and something is better, and there's something anyway. So this eventually comes down to the reason why God would create things, and when you get into that, you see why did he create what he's created, and what exactly does creation entail. these all get into questions a bit longer than a single video. He also gets into questions of ontology with God and our relationship to Him. With traditional Christianity, it brings up the problem of evil. In Mormonism, we don't have this because of our view. But for example, if God had created everything ex nihilo, then He would be the original cause of everything. And of course, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that, with the problem of evil as it's termed. But that doesn't exist in Mormonism. But so to kind of give you a firm answer and something I could extrapolate on a bit later, yeah, there are set bounds and things that need to be done, and this is regardless of the fact that people have different perceptions. But my point in the stuff I've brought up, excuse me, is that there was that phrase I used in response to you that Joseph Smith made, and again, this is not verbatim, but essentially saying that Jehovah knows the state and condition of the living and the dead, and He's made ample provision for the salvation of all His children. And again, I fully believe that. But so I hope that helps, and if you want to make any comments or have any further questions, feel free.